some people, today just so happens to be the day after Valentine's Day, and I hope that everyone had a great Valentine's Day. But for other people, February 15th is WWE NXT Vengeance Day. Should be a national holiday. I will say, this is going to come out later than expected. I did work on a new intro video specifically for Wrestling Express / Wrestling Podcast. So we're going to play that right now.
Barbie Blank, aka Kelly Kelly, and you're watching Wrestling Express Podcast.
Now that we're back from that, this match card had 6 matches. It seemed like a lot of those matches kind of got added on that last NXT, which made it seem like there was a ton of matches. So we're just going to get right into it. The first match, the opening match, was Stephanie Vaquer versus Fallon Henley for the NXT Women's North American Championship. Obviously, Fallon Henley came out with Fatal Attraction, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix, who obviously played a role within the match. Also on the sideline, you had Jada Parker, Carmen Petrovic, and Kalani Jordan in the audience, hanging out, looking on. JC Jane does play a big role in this match, attacking Stephanie Vaquer twice throughout the match, but Stephanie Vaquer does get her payback and just dismantles Fatal Attraction. Fatal Influence. Can't get those two mixed up. Just destroys Fatal Influence, leads into her hitting her finisher on Fallon Henley and winning the NXT Women's North American Championship. In my opinion, it seemed like a pretty back and forth match, which is kind of rare to see these days. You usually see kind of someone winning for a little while, the next person winning for a little while. This didn't really feel like that. It seemed like they were going tit for tat throughout the whole match. Like I said, obviously, JC Jane had her influence, but at the end of the day, Stephanie Vaquer got her win. She did do an interview later on in the show where she was asked about her championship and said that her night was not over, that she'd be hanging out watching the NXT Women's title match at the end of the night. Next up, we had Nathan Frazier and Axiom, also known as Fraxium, going against Josh Briggs, and I'm going to destroy this. Yoshiki Inamura. Was a good match, as expected. I do really like Josh Briggs a lot. He kind of does give me that JBL vibe. Also, he came out with this kind of pretty cool skull jacket that must have had some sort of smoke machine or something within it. Kind of, if you've seen Drake on tour, he's got the sweater with the bullet holes in it, and it's got the smoke coming out of it. They must have gone to the same person because he had a skull on his shoulder with smoke coming out of it. So that was pretty cool. Long story short, Fraxium ends up winning the match. Pretty expected. No surprise there. They all end up back in the ring. They all go to shake hands. And I know one of them is Dion Lennox. I don't know the rest of them. It didn't really sound like anyone really knew the rest of them, specifically by the crowd chanting, "Who are you?" And the announcers didn't really make a comment on who it was either, other than Dion Lennox. But 4 wrestlers had came in after the match. All we know is that they're from the Performance Center, and they beat up everybody. Everybody in the ring, done. Very Shield-esque. In fact, kind of that same way of these guys that quote unquote nobody knows coming in the all black and beating the crap out of everyone in the ring, just causing havoc. So that's important for later to keep in mind for later on in the show. The next match after that was Eddie Thorpe versus Trick Williams. Same thing, pretty good match. I mean, you're not really going to see quote unquote terrible matches these days, but it was a little different. It was a strap match. I was under the impression, and maybe they had talked about this and I had missed it, I was under the impression that a strap match was, so you're tied to your opponent with a strap and you have to touch all four corners. They did not do it that way. They just did a pinfall style match. Eddie Thorpe ends up having the opportunity to kind of get that strap in between Trick Williams' legs, hits him with the low blow, hits him with the finisher, ends the match as clean as can be, I suppose. Next up was one of my favorites for the show. It was Javon Evans versus Ethan Page. Obviously, Javon had the quote-unquote broken jaw that he got medically cleared for, but not medically cleared for, but is medically cleared as long as he signs a waiver saying that WWE is not responsible for his injuries, which was kind of weird. The match did start outside of the ring. Javon jumps out, attacks Ethan Page, almost splatters him across all the announcers. From there, it kind of does that battle outside. I'm not sure if this was specifically a no DQ match or a no countout match, but they did not count at all, I think, throughout the match. And if they did, it wasn't very fast. At one point, Javon takes Ethan's head, puts it on the steel steps, goes to stomp on it. Ethan moves, takes Javon's ankle, puts it in the steel steps, kicks it, kind of builds that, Ethan doesn't care who he hurts or how bad he hurts you in his match. He just wants to win. From there, another time throughout the match, Javon actually steps on Ethan's head, trying to quote unquote break his jaw, do the eye for an eye deal, which didn't really make much of a difference. Javon goes to hit his finisher off the top rope. Ethan punches him, knocks his mouth guard out of his mouth. Obviously, he starts bleeding. There's the concern for the broken jaw. Ethan Page hits his finisher, ends the match, wins right there. Next up was Obafemi versus Austin Theory versus Grayson Waller in a triple threat match for the NXT Championship. Now, this was kind of booked as 2-on-1 handicap match, but A-Town Down Under versus Obafemi, that tension building between A-Town Down Under. They did come in separately, which I thought made sense because it was not a tag team match. They kind of played are they going to attack each other? Are they going to attack each other? They had kind of a bunch of times where they ended up working together. They had a couple times where they mistakenly hit the other person. Obafemi ends up winning and retaining after Grayson Waller, we'll say accidentally, hits his finisher on Austin Theory. Then Obafemi swoops in, hits his finisher on Grayson, wins the match. Again, lights go out. We got to see that, what I have tagged down here as the PC crew, come in, attacking Obafemi 4-on-1, and just, like I said, such a Shield-esque vibe. I can't remember, was it 2012 when the Shield came out? I suppose I could just look, huh? Sure was. Shield debuted 2012 Survivor Series. And the main event for the evening was the Fatal 4-Way between Bayley, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, and Julia. Now, I will say, and maybe I missed the Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez feud. Obviously, I know they're both heels and they're both going after the championship, but I feel like I must have missed a specific moment where they were kind of going against each other. Yeah, I don't know. I will say they did kind of work together sometimes. They did go against each other sometimes. I kind of say they were very hesitant in going against each other. At one point, Cora Jade saves Roxanne, and that kind of begins their time of working together. But at the end of the day, didn't make a difference. Julia ends up winning. Julia retains. After the match, Stephanie Becerra comes out to meet Julia in the ring. They both have that photo op of them both holding the titles up. A little bit of that Eddie Guerrero and supposed person who shall not be named at the end of WrestleMania 20. I'm sure you can look it up on your own. But that big moment of two people who are supposed to be friends finally having that moment. Kind of having that awkward moment where Stephanie's looking over at Julia, looking at the belt, building that tension, and then boom, siren goes off. Jordynne Grace enters the ring, kind of shares that photo op. I will say, and I like Jordynne Grace as much as the next guy, but she's officially signed with WWE. She's not your TNA superstar, your surprise, your big pop that she keeps getting. I get it. She's good and we like her. But I feel like every time she comes out, it's like this big pop of a surprise. Like I said, the first time she came to WWE, I get it. Big pop, big surprise. Second time, however long later, cool, big pop, big surprise. She's signed now. She's gonna be there all the time. You don't need to be so surprised every time you see her. So that's kind of how the show ended. I thought at the rate they were going, the PC crew should have just came out and attacked all of them. It would have really set the tone for how savage these guys are. I did want to kind of take some time to look ahead at the next episode of NXT, since they did kind of run a lot of stuff throughout the pay-per-view and kind of what we have for the next upcoming week here. The big thing is they started the WrestleMania countdown. So I believe there was 60-something days until WrestleMania. I'm probably not going to post this video today. It'll be posted tomorrow. Along with this video, on Sunday, February 16th, you can also watch LFG, which premieres on A&E, which I will definitely be watching. Looks pretty entertaining, looks pretty funny, kind of takes me back to the original Tough Enough, kind of more so than that original NXT. This is definitely a little bit more, at least from what I've seen of that, starting from the bottom and training your way up. Another show we have to look forward to is Evolve on Tubi, which I don't know if Tubi's free or not, but I really don't feel like paying for another thing to watch WWE. Obviously, you have to pay for whatever cable you use, whether it be a streaming service. I use Hulu for the NXT and the SmackDown. On top of that, you got to pay for Netflix to watch Raw. On top of that, you got to pay for Peacock to watch the PLE/pay-per-views for the old folk like me. And now they want us to pay for Tubi as well. Like I said, I don't know if you have to pay for it or not. If you do, I probably will end up paying for it just because that also looks pretty good. But I'm not going to be happy about it. At one point during the show, Stax did do a promo where he's kind of sitting at a table. It looks like the table that the whole family is usually at. And he's kind of talking, looking at both sides. Then the camera pans out and he's just sitting there by himself, which I thought was an interesting way to do a promo. In that promo, he pretty much challenges the Perfect 10, Shawn Spears, to a match. And at the end, or towards the end of the show, they talk about how it's signed, it's good to go. On Tuesday, NXT, we're going to see Stax Lorenzo versus Shawn Spears. Another thing that happened throughout the show is they did a little, kind of like a little promo vid through TikTok, which I thought TikTok was done. I personally don't have TikTok, so I don't follow it as well. But I guess it was live, and then it was done, and then now it's back, but then it never left. So I don't really understand what happened with TikTok. But anyway, Sol Ruca did a TikTok with Zarya to kind of build them training for their next tag team match, which I thought was, I kind of liked it, to be honest. It kind of showed, I guess, a quote-unquote softer side of Zarya and kind of that joking, almost a dynamic of Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix, that they kind of play off of each other really well. So Sol Ruca is trying to teach Zarya how to skateboard. She's teaching her how to play volleyball, doing some calisthenics, some handstands, whole nine. I will point out, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, Sol Ruca had the hand crank windows, which you don't see that every day. Also, speaking of Santino Marella, we got to see a clip, him with his daughter. I feel like I pointed this out on the show before, but I know I'm getting old because Santino Marella and his daughter, Ariana Grace, is the first 2 generations of wrestlers that I've watched specifically debut. Obviously, I've seen Rey Mysterio wrestle. I've seen Dom wrestle. I've seen Dusty Rhodes wrestle. I've seen Cody Rhodes wrestle. But Santino Marella, I remember the day that he came to the WWE. Now I can remember the day that his daughter came to the WWE. So that is a big deal. Kind of lost track of what I was talking about there. Long story short, Sol Ruca and Zarya will go against the Meta 4 / the Meta 2 / Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend on Tuesday, NXT. Another thing they did talk about during the show that kind of popped up at the very beginning of the show is they are doing a number 1 contenders match, Jada Parker versus Kalani Jordan versus Carmen Petrovic for the number 1 contender spot for the North American Championship. So whoever wins that will go against Stephanie Vaquer at a later date. Another thing that's happening, Ricky Starks will sign his contract on Tuesday. Due to my, I don't want to say commitment to the WWE, but due to me pretty much exclusively watching WWE, I don't really know who this guy is. Kind of the same thing that happened when Penta got signed. Everyone talked about how good he is. I'm sure he's great. I don't know who this guy is. I'll just kind of watch him just like everyone else. He does do this weird thing that I don't really like. But in terms of my predictions for Tuesday NXT, I'm going to go with Shawn Spears beating Stacks. I think the amount of people that he has is just going to overpower the family. In terms of LFG, I think I'm really going to like it. Ricky Starks, I think someone's going to interrupt him. I don't know who. It could also be another surprise, but I don't think it is. I'm thinking it's going to be, I don't know, maybe like an Eddie Thorpe or something like that. Kind of your heel guy that just feels like the spotlight's getting taken away from him. But I think for sure Ricky Starks is going to get interrupted. In terms of the number 1 contenders match, I could really go any way on this one. If Adonis or whatever his name is gets involved, I could see Carmen winning. But other than that, I don't think that she's going to win. You could maybe say Kalani Jordan, but I feel like she's had a lot of opportunities. I'd probably have to go with Jada Parker just because I feel like she hasn't had as many opportunities and she's really like building her character in a way that I think the other two just aren't. Last but not least, for the tag team match, I think Sol Ruca and Zarya are going to win. They're building that momentum. Jakara Jackson and Last Legend just don't have that momentum right now. So, I mean, it's a pretty easy pick for me. But other than that, I'd love to see a comment under this video with someone telling me what they thought of Vengeance Day and also maybe throw in a prediction for Tuesday. This will be out before Tuesday, I promise you that. So I'm not just watching it and then getting all the answers right because I've seen it already. This is going to be legit predictions. And I might start doing this for, depending on how much they show within the pay-per-view, I might start doing my predictions for the next show at the end of my videos if I can kind of rip through the results fast enough. With that being said, my name's Elijah. I'm one of the Wrestling Express admins. I'd like to thank you for watching, tuning in to the Wrestling Express podcast. This is going to be kind of a new deal, new kind of style where I'd like to really get this separate from my current channel. This video will be on my channel, and I'm guessing the next couple videos will be on my channel, but kind of in a different vibe type of deal. if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.